living sober, busy living sober, busy living sober. Today, I'm really, really excited. So if people are out in San Francisco, they might recognize my guest today, Elizabeth Bermudez, who is also known as Lizzie B. Hi, Lizzie. How are you today?
Hi, Busy. It's the Busy Lizzie show this afternoon.
It is. It's so funny because before we started taping, we were talking about her name's Elizabeth, my name's Elizabeth. What name do you go by? Who's your alias right now?
Right. My undercover, yeah.
We all need aliases these days, don't we?
We do. I go by Lizzie, but you know what? It's so funny though. Somebody will go, well, what do you respond to? And I said, I've been called so many, I've got old friends that will be like Lizard, Lizzo, Wizzy, it runs Libby, it kind of runs the gamut.
But your mom and dad and your sisters?
They call me Lizzie unless I'm in trouble. And then it's it's a very stern Elizabeth. And I'm like, oh shit. I've pissed somebody off.
Now, wait a minute. Have you lived in San Francisco your whole life?
No, I've lived in California most of my life, except for professionally when I was moving around. I grew up in Northern California.
Okay.
And went to college on the Central Coast in San Luis Obispo, California.
I love that name, St. Louis Obispo.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, I was like, because
Yeah.
I'm an East Coaster, right? And the Midwest. So, we don't cross that river, that Mississippi to go west all the time. And so you went to college and you wanted to study communications from day one?
You know what? When I was in college, I wanted to marry my college sweetheart at the time. And he was older than me. And when I realized he was leaving college and did not have the same intentions immediately, I realized, shit, I need to do something. I've been at college this whole time. I need to figure out what my life plan is. And so I remember my junior year going to the college counselor's office and almost being in tears, saying, I have no idea what I'm going to do for work, for a career. I picked political science as my major, which was like the last thing I wanted to study as something just to check the box. And then I didn't know what I was going to do. And so they did, all those gamuts of testing that they do to find your strengths and weaknesses. And I remember afterwards, the counselor sitting me down and kind of going through this list of where you're strong and this might be interesting to you. One of the things that I remember her saying is, you like talking to people, you like doing things differently. You don't envision yourself sitting at a desk all day or being at a typewriter, because I'm that old. And so I was like, well, what kind of jobs does that entail? And one of the jobs that she rattled off was a reporter. And I went, for whatever reason, I went, oh my God, that sounds really cool. And around the same time, somebody had come in for a career expo that was a reporter. And I went, that's my jam. Like, she's got a different story every day. It's new, it's exciting. You get to break the news. This was pre-internet Busy. So we didn't have news 24/7. And I love the idea. And I'm still this way. If I find something that I love, I'm like, this is the best dental floss, you guys, you've got to try it. Like, whatever it is, like I get super excited about. And so the thought of learning the news and being able to share it with people and share their stories, for some reason, just lit my fire. And so after that, I switched to broadcast journalism, and that was it.
Isn't that cool? Now, I got to ask you the question, because you mentioned you're like, I'm older. How old are you? I just need to ask that.
I'm 54. I'll be 55 in a couple months.
Okay. So what year did you graduate high school?
86.
Okay. I graduated in 87. So I was born in 68. You were born in 69, correct?
Right.
But I don't know. My mom must have held me back and pushed you or your mom pushed you forward.
You know what? My mom pushed me forward. I started a year early.
Yeah,
I did.
So, and I had somebody on just recently, and we were talking about how, because we were born in kind of that era where it was still like, all right, wait a minute, you go to college, but you kind of go to college to get a husband. You don't really go to
Right.
college to become like get a job, right? It wasn't like that.
I had friends getting married left and right as soon as, they got that diploma, and there was like the wedding invitations, the engagement announcements. And I was like, that's not happening. So what am I going to do? I come from a very working class family. I'm the first kid in my massive family to go to college. So I was just like,
Rock star.
okay, like flying blindly, like I got to figure this shit out.
It's so crazy because I think that this just occurred to me yesterday that I really think we were the generation that was right there on the cusp, right? Because right after us in like the 70s, they started doing the women's lib, and you can do both. You can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan and
Right.
make your man happy, all that other crazy stuff. But does it really happen? Can you do
No.
all those things perfectly?
Who says, it's like you can do all things if that's what you want to do, and you cannot do them at the same time. I think I did get into a bit of that mentality, like I can do it all. But my boyfriend told me he didn't want to get married, something clicked, and I said, I have this dream, and I want to work as a broadcast journalist. I have this dream. And busy. I was never a strong student. I never, got great grades. Everything I had to work for. I'm one of those people where everything is always hard. Like it's never been handed to me. I've never, if there's path A and path B, and A is the easy way, I'm taking B. And it's not by choice. It just has happened that my entire freaking life. And so when I got this idea that I wanted to be a reporter, I really had my family was working class. We had no connections. They didn't go to college. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just figuring it out as I went, figuring out. I mean, I had friends that laughed at me when I graduated from college, and they're like, okay, you do well with a beer bong. You're not going to do well with a microphone and a reporter's notebook. Are you kidding me? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I did.
And so where'd you go first? Someplace probably totally
Oh my
obscure that
God.
you'd never heard of before in your life.
Exactly. But the first thing I did was I did an internship at my nearby TV station for free for almost a year. And what I did was, and I was self-guided. I mean, I just was like, okay, I think I want to work in television, but I'm not quite sure what department. And I rotated every couple of months to different departments, sales, production, community. And I finally ended up in the newsroom, and it was so freaking batshit crazy and noisy and things. And I'm like, I love this. This is so cool. And scanners going off, and the Associated Press news bulletins were being printed on dot matrix. And it was so cool. And I was like, that's it. This is where I need to be. So basically my internship post-college was my training ground. That's where I learned to write a story, to shoot a story, to edit, to make beat calls, everything. I was just job shadowing constantly all the time. And then after about a year and a half, they hired me, and I did a production assistant job. And then probably another 9 months later, after sending out, which seemed like a zillion tapes, I got hired at a public access TV station in Bishop, California. I don't know what the population is today, but back then I think it was like 2,300. Yeah.
Okay, there's more people at your daughter's university than
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, I'm in, I'm going. I'm like, I will go wherever I get a job. And it took forever. And I went to this public access. I did the fishing report. I did the sports report. I did the Inyo County supervisor's report. I was doing the police blotter. I mean, it was my mom has VHS tapes somewhere, and it is hilarious. But that's how I started. That was my very first TV job. And then I went to Bakersfield, California. And then I went to Salinas, Monterey, California. And then I went to Portland, Oregon. And then from Portland, Oregon, I got back to San Francisco, Bay Area.
wow. I just
Yeah.
look at this in awe because I'm going to tell you, you don't know this because we don't know each other really at all, but that was my dream. And
Really?
was to go into television. And I worked at the local CBS affiliate in Philadelphia, which, at that point was like the 13th market in the country.
Yeah.
And because of my drinking, I got passed over and they let me go because got sloppy one night and was, talking about some of the anchors who are actually still around today. And and they're like, we're going to have to let you go. And that was it. And fast forward, it ended up, I got sober 17 years ago, but I raised my family. And that's why I started Busy Living Sober, because I always wanted to be on TV. I always
Oh my
wanted
God,
to
I have
interview people.
goosebumps.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps, Busy. Oh my gosh.
So
Oh my
so
gosh.
when,
And it's funny, I tell people because I've had a few people who've said like, oh my God, that was a dream job. I said, let me just tell you though, with every goal or every dream, it comes with great sacrifice, right? Like we always see, and I think that's the problem oftentimes with social media. It's like we just see one side of it. We see that shiny, sparkly side. And I remember because I was like, I want to go to network. I want to go to network. That was my dream at the time. And had a couple close calls. And every time it wouldn't happen, I'd say, oh, I got passed up for so-and-so or so-and-so. And my mom would say, like, you don't know what she sacrificed to get there. You don't know what her journey has been. Don't even compare yourself. Don't even compare yourself. So
you have a smart
I'm
mom.
glad you're doing this.
I'm glad I'm doing
Yes.
this too. You have a very smart mom. And then you met your hubby
Yeah, but that
somewhere.
took a while. I
Okay.
kissed a lot of frogs, Busy. I was boy crazy.
I get
And
that
I
one
kissed a
too.
lot of bad frogs. Kissed a lot of bad frogs. If you've got problems, I'm your gal. That should have been my slogan for many, many years. Yeah, which is crazy because I grew up in a very loving family with a lot of love from both parents. But man, I just picked some doozies. There's some good ones in there, but I picked some doozies.
Isn't it? But we make
Yeah.
it through all through life, right? There's things that get put
Yeah.
into our life to help propel us to move forward. How old were you when you met your husband?
I must have been 33.
Wow. So for
Is that
that
right?
generation, that's kind of, yeah, that's a little bit older,
That's
right?
on the old side, right?
Right.
Everybody's like, what? You're still not married? Oh my gosh. And at
And
that
that
time I said,
hurts.
I'm going to be like Diane Sawyer. I'll get married when I'm 50. That's what because I really had just said, forget it. I'm going to network. I'm moving on. I don't need to get married and have kids. I will just keep pressing on. This is what's meant to be. And then I actually met my husband on a flight from San Francisco to New York to meet up with my best friend.
Oh my gosh. So you just randomly sat next to him on the plane and you started chatting.
I sat in the same row. I was like in the two seaters by the window and he was in a row, I think with 4 seats with, a bunch of guys. And it was after 9/11 and the plane was pretty empty, but we still sat in our assigned seats and this was probably 3 weeks after 9/11.
Wow.
And everybody was still really shell-shocked. I remember that. And so you were just kind of like to yourself, or you're like, hi, how are you? And people are like calling home. I remember calling my mom. I'm like, I'm mom, I'm getting on my plane. I love you. I love everybody. Tell everybody I love them. Because there was still that fear getting on a plane and flying. And I remember also telling my mom, I'm like, by the way, mom, there's some really good looking guys on my plane. I'm like, hopefully they're straight because they're from San Francisco. I know that's a stereotype and that might offend some people, but that's what I was thinking in my head. And sure enough, midway, we start drinking and 1 drink, 2 drink, 3 drinks, everybody's just drinking and talking and laughing. And that's when I met my husband he was with the bunch of guys sitting in this row next to me.
And ever since then, it's been love at first sight, pretty much, right?
It wasn't love it. I don't know if it was love at first sight, but it was really, I know I hate this because it felt like such a magical weekend. And if my best friend wasn't there to witness, we called them the airplane guys. Do you remember the guys have nicknames? You're like, oh yeah, have you met up with, with the gym guy, or did you meet up with grocery guy? So these were the airplane guys. And I was actually dating somebody else, and he was also in New York. My best friend was in New York. And it turns out that I was staying at the same hotel that my husband was staying at.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah. So then they're like, well, we have to get a car, and I'll take a car from the airport to our hotel. So I tell the story to my girls, and I'm like, please don't ever do what your mother did. Please don't do as I say. Because then I got in a car with all these 4 guys, and proceeded to drink on my way to the hotel. And then say, exchange numbers, and just kept running into him the entire weekend. But there was definitely like, oh my God, this guy's got beautiful eyes, just like seems like such a sweet guy. And that wasn't my MO. I usually dated the loud, charismatic, handsome, good-looking guy. And Todd just had this really just sweet way about him. And that
It's
was it.
so
Yeah.
funny because you think about what it was like in the 80s and the 90s, and it is so different than it is today. Our kids don't
Yeah.
even communicate the same way
I
we do.
know. Well, when I gave him my number and we exchanged numbers, I remember having the little Motorola Razor phone. I was like, T T T T. Oh, because you had to hit go through the alphabet to input somebody's name. It was so archaic.
It
Yeah.
was so archaic, but we had to talk to
Yeah.
each other because it
Yeah.
was no texting and
I
going.
know.
And kids today don't communicate, right? They just
Right.
don't. It's like we have to teach them from when they're little. Like, this is how you talk to another person.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's a whole TikTok. I did laugh with my daughter about how you order a pizza or order food to go on the telephone. And my daughter sent it to me because this kid's doing this little reenactment, and he's terrified, and his mom's basically coaching him, this teenager, of what to say. And you forget that I know my kid, I've got a 16-year-old. She didn't grow up using a phone like I did or you did. And so basic things, I'm like, okay, now when you make a call, you say, hi, like be pleasant, pretend it's in person. Hi, this is so-and-so, can you help me? You don't just, she picked up the phone and she's like, I need a pizza. I was like, okay, let's start all over again. It's not how it works.
It's so interesting. So then you went on and had 2 girls. You have one now in college.
I do.
When did you decide? Because I found you actually through a friend of mine who lives in Walnut Creek.
Oh,
And
really?
yes, I have a friend in Walnut Creek, and she said, you've got to check out Lizzie B. And this is years ago. I think this might have been 3 years ago. I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Um, Gosh, well, I've been on social media for a long time because of television, and I've worked in television, and I'm part-time freelance. So I've been dabbling in and out of TV and social media since 2005 or 6, right? And
So
it's
like
just
20
been,
years, almost
so
20
it's
years.
been different iterations of what I've been, depending on the work that I'm doing. But doing the stuff that I do now, which is midlife and pro aging and menopause, that probably started a couple of years ago.
Because that's when
Yeah,
it
about
started
two
to
and a half
hit
years
you.
ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
hard. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another thing. Why do like I asked my mom, God rest her soul, I said, Mom, how is menopause? And she's like, oh, what do you mean? I don't even remember it.
yeah,
It wasn't even anything. When you asked your
yeah.
mom, what did she
And I
say?
think, well, it's so funny. There's culturally, I'm Mexican and Filipina, and there's just things in our culture that weren't talked about. Mental health wasn't talked about. I mean, my mom used to say like horrible things like, oh, this medication stuff that's just ridiculous. Nobody needs medication. Mental health that's, please, we'll pray it away. That's all in your head. She'd get hot, walk around in her bra sometimes, and that was it. Or she had her period for a long time, and that was it. Nothing else. And there were just things that you just didn't speak about.
Isn't it
So I
interesting?
had no real awareness. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like I remember when I got my period, my mom's like, "Here's a book. It's called Period." And I just went and read the book. I'm like, okay. It's kind of like you think about it. It's like, can you imagine saying to your like my daughter, we had this huge long, it was weeks and weeks and weeks building up, and what's it going to be like, and and then making sure her brothers aren't listening, and it's just like becomes this whole thing. And that's the one thing I love about what you're doing and what I do, in that getting out there and talking about these things that are so relevant in so many people's lives, because I feel like since COVID, so many people have felt so alone. I mean, I'm in
Yeah.
Florida, so it's like we live on two different countries, right? Because
Right.
California
Right.
compared to Florida, it's like completely polar opposite, right?
Right.
We barely had any COVID, right? It didn't happen in Florida. There was no COVID in
We
Florida.
barely had.
They're like, we're going to close the beach for a month. That's about it. Okay, you guys got to stay in. And
Uh,
there in California, it was like, wait a minute, you're locked down for the rest of your life. If you don't have a card, you can't do this. And then you see restaurants closing and all this other drama. But I think it isolated and it put this fear, like it was 9/11, like that day you were on the
yeah.
plane. And it's still there, though. It's still
Yeah.
lingering with people. And they're at home and they're feeling so lonely and so sad. And
Yeah.
I know more people than not that have been starting, I mean, especially women, drinking more than they ever have before.
Oh, I found definitely during the pandemic that was a coping mechanism. And I've always been a social drinker. I've never been a nightly drinker. Um, or even like I need to every time we go out to dinner kind of drink, or it was more just in social settings that I would drink. But I found during the pandemic, we were so out of sorts that I would drink and I would get drunk, because it doesn't take a lot for me to get drunk. I'm only 5'3". And when I would drink, because it wasn't often, I would just be like, this is fantastic. Boom, boom, I'm going to have another martini. Um, and then I would be so hungover, and then I would eat the refrigerator in the house down. I mean, and then I'd be sick. And I went, okay, I've gained 25 pounds. I feel like shit. What am I like? Elizabeth. That's when I used Elizabeth on
Yes.
myself. I was like, Elizabeth, we need to do things different. And so once the light bulb went off for me during the pandemic and I just got clarity, I'm like, what is it? Like, what are you freaking out about? What is going on? And I think it was like it was such a perfect storm. I was early 50s. My dad had recently died, and that was just heartbreaking. I have a daughter with mental illness and was suicidal at times. And then I was turning 50, early 50s, going through menopause, and work was basically saying, thank you, but no, thank you. We don't really need you anymore. And I was just like, oh my God.
And
What,
everybody,
like,
oh,
and then we're tossing lockdown, right? And then the doctor's like, you need a hysterectomy because we think you have ovarian cancer. And I was like, okay, time out. What in God's name is happening? So it felt like a lot was happening. And that's when as a reporter by nature, and that's been my life career, I just started researching, and I'd just be researching and reading and researching and reading. And I'm like, why isn't there, I'm like, why are women talking about this? And why can't I see anybody that looks like me talking about this? What is going on? And I would have these conversations with women. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm like, I have a teen acne right now. I'm like, my hair is falling out. I'm like, I've got a dry vagina. What the hell is
right.
going on, for God's sake? Nobody was talking about it. Nobody. I'm like, I cry all the time. I am just angry. I am moody. I was like, my body hurts. My taste buds are changing. I was like, my bones are cracking. It was just like on and on, everything that I've got hot flashes. And I was like, okay, if this is just what I'm going through, then there's got to be other people that are going through this. And then, you toss in, we're just like aging parents, dying parents, mental health, pivoting career wise. middle age, it just felt like the biggest shitstorm of all shitstorms converging all at once. And I just was like, okay, we're done crying. We need to figure out what we're going to do. And so I was just like, do what you love, do what you do, start telling stories, start sharing your story. Now that was different, Busy. I'm used to sharing other people's stories. I'm used to asking the questions. I'm used to digging and prodding. And everybody, my kids, my friends would tell me, if you're going to go on social media and start sharing content, you can't do it like you did back in the TV days. It just doesn't work that way. They're like, you need to be you. You need to show up on days with no makeup. You need to be honest. You need to get rid of, and I do it. It'll fluctuate here while we're talking. You need to get rid of your TV voice. And you just need to be you. And that took a while. That took a long, excuse me, a really long time. So I was making stuff and trying to shoot stuff that I didn't post probably for maybe 2 years because it just was so ridiculous that I couldn't get comfortable. I was still thinking like, I'm, weather and news on the sevens, on, just being super proper. And my girlfriends and my sisters were like, we talk to you, you're dropping F-bombs. Half the time your hair's in a messy bun, you're wearing sweat, like just be real. And so once I was like, oh, okay. But it's been, I've done TV for so many years. My kids joke. I see a camera or a microphone. It's like, ding, and they're like, no, mom, keep it down. Just be you. Just be you. People just want you. They don't want TV. They don't want TV Lizzie. They want real Lizzie. So that was kind of the whole, the short version of why I decided to start sharing my journey and having conversations that weren't comfortable and talking about the things that women don't like to talk about. Because I would find when I would go out in a social setting, talking to other women, once they would hear me talking about, not wanting to have sex with my husband, having a dry vagina, sweating all the time, feeling like I don't know what I'm going to do next. Like I would have all ears, and then they'd be like, oh yeah. And then, and did you know, oh my God, really? What do you think I should do? And then women were just like, talking and talking and talking. I'm like, okay, I need to be comfortable sharing this with more women. This is what you need to do.
When I got introduced to you, ironically, I was going through very similar things like you just described. All my kids had left because they were gone. So, they left to go to school, right? They were all flying. They all went to college, which is, I'm blessed that they went to college, but at the same time, no one prepares you for that. Then I had all those things you described, the dry vagina, not wanting to have sex with my husband. I'm like, who wants to have sex with him? I don't even like him anymore. I've only been married to him for 2 years.
Too loud.
Yeah, and I've only been married 2 years, by the way. This is my second marriage. And I go to the doctor, and I would go to the doctor, and the doctor would be like, how are you? And I'd be like, oh, and I'm not a crier. And I'd be like, cry. I'm just like, I hate my life. There's something wrong. What can I do? And nobody would talk about, okay, wait a minute. This is hormones. Let's talk about it. Let's come up with a plan. Oh, here, we're going to give you Wellbutrin. Oh, wait a minute. That's not enough. Let's just up the Wellbutrin. And I'm like, okay, all right, if that's what you want me to do. And I'm walking around as a zombie. I feel like shit. Nobody's talking about this. No one.
Yeah.
There is no answers. And it's kind of ironic because I moved to Delray about a year ago. And I go to this new hair salon. I love it. It's called Cloud 10, if anybody wants to know, in Delray Beach. And I'm in there, and there's this woman I talk to every time I go there. I don't know why I see her every time I'm there. She's there. We're on the same schedule, getting the hair colored, because let's face it doesn't look like this naturally. And she starts talking to me, and she has sons, and her first one's about to go off to college at this coming fall or next fall. And she's like, no one ever talked about what's going on with our hormones. Now, this woman's a doctor. She's an MD.
Yeah. Well, it's something like only 20% of doctors get trained in menopause.
It's just like alcoholism. Do you understand that? Alcoholism, they've been doing the same thing to solve alcoholism. Like, did you know that, like, Matt Perry, God rest his soul, he spent $9 million on recovery.
That's That's insane. That's just,
And us women going out there, we go to the doctor and the doctor and the doctor, and they
yeah,
don't know what they're doing. Nobody's versed in it. I mean, I got to South Florida and they're like, oh, take a pellet. Do you know what a pellet is?
I've heard, yes.
So everybody was doing that because everybody all of a sudden was going, bing, this is fabulous. I want to have sex with my husband. He's cute. I'm starting to lose weight again. I don't look like a roly-poly anymore. But then the doctors at like Penn and the Mayo Clinic are like, oh no, pellets, they're bad for you. So what kind of advice are you supposed to get? You're like, wait a minute, I thought you were a doctor and nobody knows what to tell. Well, you're going to tell me to do this. It feels good. But these guys are saying it's really not good. And we're all left in this state of utter confusion.
Yeah. There's so, I've noticed just in the last 2.5 years that I've been in the space of working with other women in this genre of content that I create, that there's so much misinformation. And so I think it's great that there are women out there that are trying to, some may have their agenda, but really just trying to educate women. Like there's never just one way, that's, my sister was coming to me recently and she was like, do I do hormones? Do I do pellets? And my girlfriend says this. And, some people have cancer and they choose not to do chemo or radiation, and they choose to do, integrative functional medicine and heal their bodies different way. One's not right or wrong, right? I really feel like as a woman, what is hard is you have to take ownership of your health and your body, and you do have to go and seek out multiple opinions, and you may have to try multiple options. Because I don't believe there is just one way to kind of navigate this stage of life. Because there are options out there, but everybody will kind of get on their pulpit and go, this is the right way. No, this is the right way. This is what you should do. I just tell them, I'm like, do some research, talk to some professionals, and do what feels right for you.
But you actually just going out there on Instagram and talking about it is like amazing, I think, because it makes us not feel so
you.
alone. It made me feel like, okay, wait a minute, I'm not so crazy. Because you go back, and my mom passed away during COVID. So it's like going back, I can't
Oh, I'm
call her and
sorry.
be like, oh, by the way, what did you do? Because
What is
it's not
happening?
what is happening. And some moms don't even want to talk about it, right? Because they're of that
Right.
generation, and it's either good nor bad. It just is that they don't want to talk about it. And then most recently, you've been talking about your daughter going off to college,
Right.
and you've been really raw.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, like, I was crying. Like some of them, I'd be like watching you, like crying. I mean, I could cry right now when I think
I was
about
just
it.
gonna say, you're gonna make me cry right now. Oh my God. Oh,
It's so, no one prepares us. They say, here are your kids, here are your babies, you're going to go raise them, and they're going to go to school. Now, today, and I think back in the day, everybody tried to go to school close to the home, right? You were kind of close to home because
right.
you're like, I'm going to go home.
Right.
Now they're like, no, I'm going to go to school in Zimbabwe.
Across the country, across the country. Yeah.
But they're
in
going to
another
go
time zone.
in another time zone, 3 time zones. It's
Yeah.
many easy passes to get there. And you're like, wait a minute. And I'm just dropping you off. And okay. And I'm gonna, all right. It's great that everybody wants to show everybody's cute rooms and how it's decorated with whose monogram and all the rest of it. But it's like, what are we do? Like, you drive away. I remember my daughter, when I dropped my daughter off at the College of Charleston. This is a long time ago because now she's in law school. But I was sitting in my car with my sons, both my sons, and I'm just, tears are just, they're like, what is wrong with you? You're crazy, Mom. Why? But no one prepares you.
Yeah. And my husband, God, I love him. We're just, I'm spicy and hot. I run spicy and hot, and he's always super chill, and I did a lot of crying throughout the year that she left, that she was preparing to leave. And he'd be like, this is what we've worked to do. This is part of life. This is a life transition. This is her growth. This is exciting. And I would be like, this is the last time that we're going, and he's like, stop saying it's the last time. Stop saying it's the last time. he's like, we're celebrating. We're celebrating this life transition. Don't call it the last time. We're celebrating. So we would drop her off. We're celebrating, or she's going to go and look at her dorm. We're celebrating everything. We just try to change the language in our head and not think of it as the last, because the last felt, just for us and for me, really heavy and sad. And it conjured up a lot of heaviness. And so I knew to get through this period, I had to reframe and reset. And so I do that whenever I get, like right now, just like recalibrate. You're going to see her in 3 weeks. You get to see her. She's going to be home. Nobody prepares you for that. I don't think it's possible to, right? That you spend all this time raising these humans. And I think everybody parents differently, right? So what you put into it, I think you get. And for some people, I think motherhood and parenthood is a bigger responsibility than other people. And I think other people can handle the transition better. And so you really just have to stay in your lane and just focus on finding, what's going to bring you peace and joy, and that you've done the work, you've laid the foundation. That's all I would think about as I've been raising my girls, is the foundation. That's my job, is the foundation. We're giving them a solid foundation so that they could build off of that and always come back home. That's all. And so the clock was ticking on the calendar. I'm like, okay, I got 6 more months before my foundation is done. What else can I teach her? What else can I do? Wild. That was a tough one, was having to know that she was going to be going to, the Midwest to go to college, and be in another time zone, not know anybody. It's still wild to me.
But you have friends there. I know you have friends there, because I know she got sick the first
Oh
week.
my God, yes. Thank God my husband has some dear college friends. Oh my God. Because my daughter did get sick, terribly sick, the week of welcome. And she even said that. She was telling me the other day, she was crying about something else. And she's like, Mom, you have no idea what it was like to have them take me into their house. And my friend's wife was just mothered her back to health, for several days, especially just being there on her first week. And that was huge, but that was tough. I was just here at home, just going, oh my God, you're not going to get in a plane and fly over there. No, that's not what you do. I was just so my baby, oh my God, she's sick and I can't take care of her. This is what I do, right? This is what I've done her whole life. So that for me was hard. That was a hard one right out of the gate.
And it's kind of interesting, because I think, again, it dating us, but going to this place of when our parents raised us, we got to this place. The moms, I don't know, my mom went and played tennis more, I guess. She started to sell real estate. She did these little jobs, right? And I feel like for me, especially, my identity was so much I was a single mom with 3 kids. So I'm constantly running from lacrosse to squash to crew to this. And my kids are so close together. One in 96, one in 97, and one in 99. So it was like triplets. I was constantly going. And no one tells you that it's okay. They just go back home sometimes and just cry, knowing that it's going to be okay, and that it is time to reinvent ourselves. So here we are, and I call it 5.0 because I'm 55. You're almost 55. So 5.0, what are we going to do? How are we, because we're going to live so much longer, right? And these kids are going to have, my youngest is in, he's just already has a job at Los Alamos. He's going to go do his thing working in the government, and he's at Georgia Tech. He's graduating in December. And he's off. He's done. He's going to go live out in New Mexico. And my daughter's in law school in Vermont. Who knows where she's going to end up? My oldest is, they all are somewhere else, because we live in a global world now.
Right.
So what happens to Mom 5.0?
What happens to Mom 5.0? Well, this mom right here had a breakdown. I joke about humor. Laughter is my everything. I know you like to laugh as well. Yeah. I'm a laugher, and that has been a part of my therapy since my postpartum days, because I've dealt with depression throughout the years. Having just like that good, I like to laugh till I'm crying. Like that is my goal. Till I'm basically peeing myself at this age now. That's my goal. I want that once every day. That's such a healthy dose of medicine. I basically felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown, I think, at one point when everything was just coming at me. And you're like, can I get a break? Now what? Really? This is what I've been waiting for? And I think it's like when we were young girls and you're like, I'm going to get married to the perfect guy and we're going to have a house and we're going to have 2.1 kids and da 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 da. He's going to be Prince Charming. Yeah, you're like, bullshit. And then you're like, I'm going to turn 50 and we're going to travel and I'm going to be a size 2 and I'm going to have no wrinkles and blah, blah, or whatever you bought into. And I just felt like I've hit my 50s. I'm like, the wheels are coming off the bus. Here they go. Here they go. I was just like, what the fuck is happening? So I had a breakdown and I just was a pity party breakdown. I cried a lot for months. I was just reading self-help books galore. I prayed a lot. And then I was like, we got to figure out something. You're smart, you're resourceful, you've always done something. And it almost felt like going back to those college days. And I'm like, what do I love? What am I good at? What do I enjoy? My friends are like, well, you're lucky. You know what you like. You know what you love. You know what you enjoy. And I'm like, okay, yes and no, but that doesn't make it any easier. Nobody's hiring me. The whole media industry is completely different than what it was that I had my career in. So it really was about, okay, you can either just keep doing what you're doing, and right now it sucks, and getting older and being miserable, or what is the other option? You can start changing your mindset. And that is always the hardest thing because I was just like, the best years of my life are over. This is it. These are my 50. Are you freaking kidding me? I've had this awesome career. I've had this great, I've talked to like so many celebrities. I had drinks with Ryan Reynolds. I was like, I've talked to presidents. I've like all these people that I've always wanted to interview and talk to. I've done check. And I'm like, this is it? Like, that's it? Like, now I'm supposed to ride off into the crappy sunset? No. And so I was like, okay, Bermuda, you got to figure this shit out. And I was like, okay, go back to what you know and what you love. And you love, if nobody's going to hire you or nobody wants to hear what you have to say at this age, then you're going to have to just create it. And if it's 2 people, if it's your mom and your sisters and your cousins listening, then so be it. But go out there and start sharing and creating and talking about the things that you like to talk about. And so that was kind of it, but it was it felt like an epic midlife meltdown. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I have to tell you, Lizzie B, you have helped me more than you even know, because I'd go and I'd watch you and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Right. And being sober, it's like, you can't, I'm not going to go pick up a drink or pick up a pill and put that. I just have to have these feelings, and feelings sometimes just really fucking suck.
Yeah. Like I said, mental health in my family, it has been a big thing in our family, big thing. And I would say earlier this year, I was like, I need to stop drinking. I had some gastritis and I was just sick as in the ER every weekend. And the doctor's like, you really should stop drinking alcohol and heal your stomach. And I was like, okay, because throwing up for 2 days isn't fun. And so I can probably count how many times I've had a drink since May of this year. And then things have gotten very, in personal life, really tumultuous. And I just said, you know what? I'm telling my own children, and I'm going to start to cry, to sit in the discomfort when life is heavy and hard, right? And I'm telling them it's going to pass, and it does. And our brains are so freaking powerful. They tell us such stupid stories in our heads, and we just have to kind of sit in it and be in it and feel horrible and be uncomfortable. And it passes. And sometimes it passes quickly, and sometimes it doesn't. And so I was like, I need, I need to do what I'm asking of my children and my daughters. And so I was like, right now I was like, I need to be in this and get through this. And I don't want something to numb me or to medicate me right now. I'm in my 50s. I'm strong. Like, I've got life. I've got wisdom. I know I'm going to get through it. My girls sometimes don't feel like they're going to get through it, but I know I'm going to get through it, and they're going to get through it. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, that's why I get on my phone, and that's why I share, because it's hard. Life is beautiful, beautiful, and it's so hard. It really is. And we do, like, my mom sometimes scolds me. She's like, you're just sharing too much happy. You're sharing too much, let me see that. Like, if I turn my camera right now, let me see the laundry on the sofa, let me see your dining table that has like stacks of books and arts and crafts and Legos from your daughters. Life is messy. Life is messy. And people get on social media and either, like, they share everything, right? They share too much, and you're the oversharer,
Yeah.
or you don't show anything. And so that's what's hard too, right? Like, I struggle that line where people think, oh, you cry too much or you share too much. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to be me. I'm trying to go out into the world and, like, put my hand out there, right? And be like, I got you. What you're doing, busy, like, I got you. We're going to get through this. I have a lot of virtual friends, people that I've never met, that I listen to, that I'm like, take their words and, like, I got this. I'm going to get through this. So,
But it's more of, and I have to say, the one thing you said, like, it's authenticity that most people want to see. It's the
right,
antithesis. I mean, that's it. People want to see who we really are, what we're going through. I mean, I can say that these days, where we are in our world, you know, I'm half Jewish. A lot of people don't know that. My father's Jewish. My grandparents were Jewish. And what's going on today is just like, I'm not going to, it's just like that we are living in 2023 and people are acting like this. And we
right,
raise our children to not hate,
right,
about love. We've got to
right,
bring everybody together. We got to get everybody to come together in this big party in the
right,
world and say, you know what? We're done with the games. We're done with the fighting. Let's just love
right.
each other.
Yeah. And we can be different, I think I heard one of your podcast guests talking about that, and you had talked about something political, and, like, I have family members and we have such starkly different political views and opinions. And somehow along the way, we've just given complete disregard to having any discourse, or differing of opinions, and being civil to each other,
Insane.
like there are a lot of things my mom says I think are batshit crazy that I don't agree with. But I love her dearly, and we have a great relationship. And I think, somehow people got just so divisive and so mean and so hateful, right? That they don't even know, like, what they're saying and what they're doing. So
And it's
my
all over the
husband,
world, isn't it? It's all
it
over the
is.
world. It's not just in the America. It's like
Yeah.
it's like an epidemic in the entire universe. It's like everywhere we go. Astrologers say that the light's shining down, and now we get to see all of what's really going on behind all these glass, all these curtains all over the place. We get to see it now, and it's kind of scary. But I
Yeah.
think it's us that has to be the important ones that are going to go, I'm going to come to the table. I might believe something completely different than you, but that is okay. We can still be
Right.
friends.
Right. Because I have friends who are like, well, if they believe that, or they think that, or they're on that team, then I don't want anything to do with them. I mean, if you're, you know, committing crimes and doing something horrible, that's completely different. But if you're going about leading a good life. And just because we think differently, I'm going to be kind. We don't have to be besties.
Well,
you
and it's
know?
become like it's so divisive. And I think that the more us girls, maybe boys too, I know I listen to some men podcasts too. It's more about coming together and educating everybody that it's okay. And mental illness is huge and it happens in every family. Alcoholism happens in a lot of families. Drug addiction happens in a lot of families. Losing people, like everything, like
Yeah.
dealing with elderly parents, all of
My
it.
daughter was crying the other night and she's like, everybody's living their best life. And I'm like, my God, did Oprah come up with that freaking slogan? Oprah, I'm going to slap you. And I love her, but my God. And I was like, oh, honey. I'm like, no. I'm like, that's how it looks. And well, that's how it looks. I'm like, you do not see what is happening inside those homes, between the walls of their mansions and private jets or whatever. I'm like, you have no idea what somebody's going through. You
No, you
don't.
have
And a
no
lot of
idea.
people just don't talk about it. Yeah. And they don't share.
And it's really true. Like that Matthew Perry, thinking about how much money he had, it didn't matter. It didn't
Right.
matter. It was his demise, right? For whatever reason, if it was
Yeah.
actually that he had used that day or if it was just the abuse he had done from years before. And coming together and realizing that social media, when you put something up there, it's like a billboard. Here we have 95. That's Highway 95, goes all the way from Florida to Maine. It's like putting a billboard on the side of 95 that everybody can see. And if you've just gone to dinner and not everybody in your friend group was invited, maybe don't put the picture up. You think maybe that would be smart?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there are a lot of great things about social media. I love like this right here. I've met some dear friends of mine via social media. But it's like you have to have the wherewithal to filter it. Like right now, I don't have Instagram on my phone. I need like a mental break, and I'm asked my kid to take a mental break, and was like, we're doing it together. And so I'm like, we can upload it any day. We're just going to delete for now. We're not deleting our accounts. We're just going to take it off of our phones. Take some beats, recalibrate and then bring it back. But yeah, social media is it's how I spread my work. But it's also, I think in the hands and used the wrong way. And I think especially for teen girls, it can be really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I thank the Lord that it wasn't that big when my kids were in high school because I can't even imagine. It is a lot. Well, I don't want you to stop. So if you're going to be like, you know what I do? I do all of it on my computer. People are like, you do your social. I'm like, yeah, I might record it on my phone, but I put everything up on the computer and then I'm done.
Oh, do
I
you
can
really?
yes, and then I walk away because sometimes it's just too much and it gets me angry and there's enough to be angry about. And I don't want to be angry about
Right.
stupid stuff that I have no control over. Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's one
Like,
of my
let that
tools.
go.
Let
Yeah.
that go. Those are
Let
not my monkeys. This is not my circus,
Right.
right? So
Exactly.
I am
Exactly.
thank you so much for coming on and for being
Oh, you're
you
so
and
welcome.
for
You're so
being so
welcome.
authentic. And, you guys, if you're out there, check her out on social media. She's on TikTok and on Instagram. I'll have her links that are going to be right in the description if you want to go follow her. But she's real. And she's dancing through this life, through the waves. And some days she doesn't feel like $1,000,000. And that's okay because none of us feel like $1,000,000.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But
Just
reach out. I think the most important, like when you
I'm all
reached
about
out and sent me a DM, I love that. Like send me a DM, leave me a comment. I mean, I'm always, when I'm actively on social media, I'm in there like talking to other women because we need each other. We need the support of one another more than ever.
more than ever. We got to come together, us moms and us women all over the world. We got to come together because
We sure do.
we got to get ready, right?
That's right.
We got to be happy because
We're going to lead a long life. We've got so much that we have to do still.
So
that
much
we get to do.
We get to do. And we have these people that we gave birth to that are going and being the next generation.
Exactly.
And they've got rock star moms.
Exactly. I've always been a dreamer, busy. I'm always like putting my stuff out there and praying for things. And I always tell my my daughter, because my youngest daughter is super funny, has great comedic timing, and is very entertaining. I'm like, you need to be on camera, you need to be doing this, or you should do that. And I was like, we're going to do something together one day. You mark my word. I go, you're going to have me by your side, and I'm going to help you out, sis. And she's like, all right, whatever, mom. She's all right, boomer, because that's what she says.
I love it.
I was like, I got a lot of gas left in me. I've got a lot to do still.
Well, I want what you decide to do next. You have to come. You've got to come back on. You've got to tell us what you're doing. So when you have a big change, you better come back on. Will you come back on and tell us?
Absolutely.
Promise?
Absolutely.
And I'm sending you big hugs. Happy birthday in a couple months. And it was so great having you guys on. So great having you on. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. Keep getting busy, living sober. And if you go to my website and you sign up for my email, I'm going to send you a little blast. So go on there and sign in. Go to elizabethchance.com. Get a little teaser. Come on, sign on. And if you like my show, please subscribe. Take care and keep getting busy, living sober. Bye-bye.